What's up? I'm back. In this segment, we're going to talk about herbs, power of herbology, power of herbs, basically. I'm going to explain what herbology really is, and I'm going to explain how important it is and why it can benefit everybody. From a certain aspect, everybody actually uses herbs for the most part. I won't shouldn't say everybody, but more people use herbs than they think. Because sometimes when you say herbology, people just think it's cooking. People just look at it as medicine. So they may say, you take echinacea, you take golden seal. You could take it as an even pill form, the tea form. You could even eat the plant. Well, a lot of people don't really realize you even using it in food. Because even when you're cooking, things like oregano, ginger, garlic are herbs. So in that perspective, this is where herbs different than even Western medicine. Because for the most part, you don't really use Western medicine unless you're sick. But herbs, people use them even when they don't think they use them. So they've been a part of our culture for almost as long as we had civilization. In the past, when you got cut or sick, plants were the first healers. Of course, they would have to have human healers who will come and use the plants. But plants were the first healers, even or the first substances that were used to heal. Even when you have animals when they're sick, animals sometimes instinctively know that they have to fast, and they'll go to certain plants and eat them. I got a cat. Sometimes when she's upset, I have a lot of plants. So, she'll go outside and she start eating some of them when she's sick. Because animals know that plants can be used to heal sicknesses just by instinct. So herbs is one of those things that's very important. Um, I think what happens is for the most part is that when people, to me, it's supposed to be simple, but when we look at it, there's so many different types of herbal systems that sometimes it could get confusing. And sometimes people may say which one is the best, and sometimes even the systems themselves may seem very different. For the most part, when you look at the most popular systems, you would have more Western herbology, which you could say has Greek origins. Then you could go into Chinese herbology and Ayurvedic medicine, which is Indian. And then you have Native American medicine, you have African medicine. Um, in most of those cultures, in the more indigenous cultures, herbology will be tied into certain shamanistic or animist or nature traditions. Herbs was used in magic and in medicine. So now you see the use of herbs keeps going up. You can use it in medicine, you can use it in magic, you can use it in cooking. It's one of those things that it's always sort of like it's always on our plate. We're always using it. The most important thing to remember herbs, and this is a key premise that most people would miss. When you're dealing with herbs, people look at it as medicine. But I like to look at it as herbs assist your body in healing. This is why sometimes certain people may take the same herbs and have different reactions to them because it depends on your body's chemical makeup. Everybody's body is a little different. What happens is that, think of it like this. If you give a dead body an herb, right, you give it a shot, it's not gonna do anything to the dead body. Why? Because the body's already dead. In essence, the herbs help your body heal itself. It assists your body. So in a sense, it has like it's a more passive approach than Western medicine, where Western medicine is more forceful. They'll give you chemotherapy, or even hard acid medicines, and it almost in a sense it forces your body to have a reaction. When the body has a reaction, it supposedly heals. The problem with Western medicine is that if there's a sickness and it forces you, and you take a substance and it forces your body to heal, what often happens is the sickness might go away, but it goes to someplace out, another part of your body, because in essence, this is one of the differences between the East and the West. In the East, or even in indigenous cultures, for the most part, when they got into herbs, they realized, or no, when they got into diseases, they realized that a disease was basically something wrong with your body on a mental and spiritual level. So they sought to address both of those things. Whereas in the West, they just look at it more as something wrong physically. So when you get, this is why sometimes you see somebody on 4 or 5 different medications. They'll be on like a high blood pressure medication, cholesterol pills. They'll be like on 4 or 5 things because in essence, instead of addressing the root cause of it, they're addressing the symptoms. So it's almost like if you got a pimple on your foot and a pimple on your arms, you just give them 2 different medicines. And in essence, what happens is you start to basically get addicted not only to the medicines, but in essence, I guarantee if you're taking two, three, four different types of medicines, you're probably gonna be taking more. That's just the way it is because what happens is that most Western medicines being forcing your body to have reaction is actually weakens your body in some extent. And when you look at it from that aspect, this is why sometimes a lot of people are running back into herbology. Now, I'm not one of those people who tell you that Western medicine has no use. For me, Western medicine is probably better if you have an accident and you suffer trauma. I think like there's no question it could be very beneficial. But I think if you get into medicines, like in terms of like degenerative diseases or like diseases that sometimes come over time, I think herbs have an advantage. But I think for the most part, herbs and Western medicine can work together. I think in general, when you're looking at herbs, I think most people don't really know what it is. Me personally, I like to practice a more preventative type of healing, where in essence, when you use herbs as food, it's a lot different than using herbs as medicine. Because even to be honest, even when you use herbs as medicine only, you're not forcing your body to have a reaction, but you kind of are, if, in that sense. You're more passively forcing the body to have a reaction, where in Western medicine is more aggressive. But in essence, you're still losing energy. If you use herbs as food, meaning in your everyday life, not when you're sick, you would find that your body starts to function a lot better. And in essence, I think one of the reasons why people do this is because they don't understand that the herb in itself is a tool that you're supposed to work with that helps create the conditions to heal. I think most people don't really realize that. Most people, when they take an herb, they just look at it as medicine, they're taking it, and then in that sense, it's almost no different than Western medicine. A little better, but in essence, that's why some people they'll be on herbs all their life as well. Because what happens is that they only taking it when they get sick, and they're not taking it as a part of their diet, if that makes any sense. So it's like in wintertime, right? In the islands, right? Sometimes we would drink ginger tea. And a lot of times what happens, well, in ginger tea, you don't even really need the iron because it's hot. But people in the islands, let's say when they come to America and you get colds, you drink ginger tea to get rid of the colds. What always worked for me is I just drink ginger when my body is cold when I used to live in New York. I'm in West Coast now, but when I used to live in New York, I'll drink ginger when my body gets cold. What happens? Almost never caught a cold. If I even sense I was gonna catch it, I'll probably drink it before that, but if I definitely sensed it way before I start having symptoms, I'll drink it. And what happens is you then are using the herbs as a reaction to your environment. So if you know it's cold, you start to eat certain type of herbs, just like you eat certain type of foods. Most people, another problem they have is that they don't realize that when the weather changes, you're supposed to change your diet. It's just almost the same thing with herbs. Ginger is a hot herb. So in a sense, what happens is it kind of warms your body up. What a lot of people don't really realize is herbs kind of come in four. You have four distinct tastes. You have like sweet, bitter, sour, right? But then you have four distinct effects in your body. You got drying herbs, you got damp herbs, and you got wet herbs. When you really look at it from that perspective, you then realize that every herb has a different use. So if you're in the winter time, you take more fire herbs, regardless if you're sick. If you're in the summertime, you take more cooling herbs. That's the difference. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, when you're doing it from that perspective, what happens in general is that then you're using the herbs with your environment. You end up having a better effect than if you just take the herbs by itself, which a lot of people don't really realize. So from that perspective, when you use the herbs, when you look at it from that angle, you start to see that you're kind of using it as medicine, but you're using it more as food. Once you start using more as food, you start to flow better, and what happens is you start to limit your sickness. And then you're not really forcing your body to have a reaction, which is what Western medicine does. And herbal medicine, in my opinion, in the last 100 years, because it's kind of interacted with people of Western cultures, it's sort of doing the same thing where people just take a medicine when they're sick or to have a reaction, instead of taking the medicines or taking herbs when the season changes, and or taking herbs as food. That way, you have a more preventative style of medicine. So that's my first video on herbology and herbs. I'm going to cover a lot more different types of healing systems, healing systems, healing methods. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, peace.